most people named King. But if you see someone playing hockey whose name is Patrick Roy, I might be related to him, but my grandfather, when he came here, just decided to anglicize the name.
Like many.
So he came from where in France?
No, Canada.
Canada.
Oh, French-Canadian. Yeah, certainly French-Canadian.
Ultimately, he came from France.
Yes, originally, way back in the 1600s, my ancestors, my brother and I did research. We were convinced that we had royal blood. We were. We thought the name Roi means king, and we thought we had royal blood. And so we did this extensive research. And to our chagrin, we found out that the origin of the name comes from servants who work for the king. And for example, if you're a carpenter in the royal palace in ancient France, you were called carpentier du roi, carpenter of the king. If you were a gardener, you were called jardinier du roi, gardener of the king, and so forth. When people left the royal family and went into private business, they were so proud of having worked for the royal family that they retained that as part of their name. And so our ancestors were maids or gardeners or something.
My mother's maiden name is Blanchard.
That means white.
It does. And for a long time we wondered whether they were French Huguenot or whether they were, or what. But when he boils down to it, Blanchard's a Norman name.
Yeah.
So there are Blanchards on either side of the English Channel.
Yes. And they must have had something to do with painting or something.
Bleacher. I think it means relating to bleach.
Maybe they were clothes washers and ran a laundry or something. Yeah, but most French names have to do with occupation. Most of them do. L'épicier was a grocer. And it goes on and on. Almost all the names have to do with... but that's why we thought we had royal blood, because king is not an occupation. But it is. It is. It got shortened down from carpenters and so forth. Well, let me tell you a little bit. When Ed called me and asked me to come over and talk to you tonight, he mentioned the fact that, once again, the graduated income tax is being proposed in Massachusetts. And of course, Barbara Anderson, the late great Barbara Anderson, had worked very hard against graduated income tax. But that's how I got my start in politics. And I went through my archives, and lo and behold, I found the 1976 official position paper of Citizens for Limited Taxation called The Case Against the Graduated Income Tax. I kind of flipped through it before I came over here, and although the numbers are all different, the average salary and all that stuff is totally different, the philosophy that's included there is pretty much the same. I thought you'd be interested in hearing a little bit about how Barbara Anderson came to be, and you're going to laugh at me when I tell you how that came to be. When, in 1972, the graduated income tax was on the ballot. I was called by some business people who had formed a committee, and the name of the committee was the Committee for Jobs and Government Economy.
Okay.
That was the name of it. The Committee for Jobs and Government Economy. And they were formed specifically to defeat the graduated income tax. And they wanted me to head up the organization. Well, I did. And they paid me. And we went out and raised a bundle of money to defeat the graduated income tax. We raised a lot of money. Most of the money came from businesses, corporations, banks, etc., who thought the graduated income tax was a horrible idea, and they financed our campaign. When they counted the votes, at the end of the election day, we had gotten 67% of the people to vote no on that graduated income tax proposal. So, not to brag, but I became kind of a hero. But I did something very stupid. I was young. Even I was young back in 1968. No, excuse me, 1972. And I thought that we could go back to all of those businesses and banks and so forth and form a permanent organization, not only to oppose graduated income tax, but but to help with just general issues, didn't work. They wanted nothing to do with me. They said the campaign is over, go away. I couldn't understand it, and it took me a while to figure out that a lot of these businesses are tied in to big government.
Yes.
They get contracts. Book companies sell books to the school system. Banks buy tax-free bonds, and they are not opposed to big government. They were opposed to a graduated income tax because all of their executives would have been hit very hard by it, but they were not our friends across the board. So they deliberately sidetracked me and said, go away, it's over, we paid you, we're done. We're going to disband this committee. That's how Citizens for Limited Taxation was born, because I said we need a permanent organization that looks out for the taxpayers. And so we started our own group called Citizens for Limited Taxation. I was the director in the early going, and Barbara Anderson was a volunteer. And she was terrific. When we got signatures, she always was the champion, getting signatures at shopping centers. And she came into the office and she worked like a dog. When I decided, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. The graduated income tax was then put on the ballot again in 1976. But this is the interesting history. After the 1972 campaign, I told you I raised a bundle of money, I mean a lot of money. They passed a new law, the legislature passed a law which was called the King Law. It's the only law that was ever named after me. And the law said you could not accept money from corporations to fight a ballot question unless the corporation was directly affected. Since the graduated income tax is a personal income tax, their argument was that corporations have no business campaigning against this and raising money and spending money to defeat this question. So we went to court. We took them to court. And I must tell you, one of the driving forces that made us go to court was Barbara Anderson. She suggested that we take the case to court. And we did. And we won on two very important points. Point number one was that corporations have the same rights as individuals and can raise money and spend money on ballot questions. Secondly, we won on the point that a graduated income tax, and this is very important, does affect corporations. Even a personal income tax affects corporations. It affects them in two ways. It makes it difficult for them to raise money when they want to sell stock, and it makes it very difficult to start up a new company because the people that invest in those kinds of ventures are people who earn a lot of money. People don't use their bread money or their milk money to invest in the stock market. They use discretionary income.
Who were your lawyers for that?
You're asking me to go back into the 1970s, and I don't remember. I really don't. But we won big time. It was unanimous. The other reason that they said we could use corporate money to fight the graduated income tax, we had made the argument that it would be more difficult for companies to hire people to come to Massachusetts if we had a steeply graduated personal income tax. So corporations are affected by a graduated income tax.